So today we're going to trim our small plate. We're going to use just a little bit of tools. We're going to use our finishing sponge, a regular sponge if that's all you have, that's fine. A pin tool, a loop trimming tool. You'll see it has this a smaller shape, almost like a teardrop. And then a soft rib to smooth out anything. If you have a red rib, that's great. If not, you can use a credit card or the blue or black rib that comes in your beginner kit. All right, so let's get our stuff and let's get set up. Okay, so I have kind of just eyeballed where the center is based off of these rings. And I'm going to take my needle tool and not straight up and down, but more at an angle, like kind of like what you would write with a pencil. I'm going to use my pinky on the outside of my plate. I'm going to have my pencil or my pin tool in my hand. My left hand is going to ride in the center and my hands are going to touch. So my hands are going to ride on like a track. And I'm going to lightly scratch the surface. You see, I'm not really digging. I want it to be light enough that I can erase it with my finger. If I really gouge in there, I don't want to do that. I just want to really lightly center. So you can see it's pretty on center as it is, but let's do what happens if it's not on center. So I'm going to make it off a little bit and I'm going to do the same thing. So now it's thinner over here than it is on this side. So the thickest spot and the thickest part is always going to be equally direct from the smallest spot or the thinnest part of the foot. So just like we would make a blanket or take a blanket and put it on our bed, if it's more on one side, what do? We move it to the side that has less. So this here has less, so we are going to move it in that direction. Move it just a little bit. We're going to erase that line. That's why we don't want to dig down too deep. We just want to really make a really light line. I'm going to do that again. Draw that line really lightly. Should be back pretty close to center. It looks like it's still a little bit thin over there. Let's move it just a little bit. There we go. Now we're back on track. All right. So what we also need are 3 little coils of clay, and we are going to go grab those now. Okay, so I have some clay here that is still soft. It's not soggy. We want to make sure that it doesn't leave any soggy bits. So we're going to roll them out into little coils. We're going to break them into 4 pieces. And we're going to go north, south, east, west. We're going to put our hand down on our pot, wrap it around, and I'm only pushing on the outside part of that coil or that little lug. They look like little slugs. So you see that coil went down into my splash pan and it picked up some water, so we don't want to use that piece. All right, so now I'm going to define that outside edge first, right? We need to know what our borders are. If I create this really delicate, if I do the inside and then I start to do the outside, I might trim it all the way off. So I want to know what my borders are. I want to know how far I can go. So I'm going to push directly in. We're going to make that foot first. this here makes a little edge, and I'm gonna smooth that down so it becomes one. Always having my tools and my fingers connected with one another. Now for plates, we don't want that foot to be too small. It's going to make it top heavy, and it'll just kind of like rock back and forth. So we want to make sure that our foot is wide enough to keep our plate stable. So I'm going to keep it right about there. I'm going to take my finishing sponge and just clean up that edge. So now we can draw a little line so we know that's going to be our foot. So this is what we're going to carve out with our needle or our loop tool. We're going to start at 3 o'clock and move inward. You can see how I'm holding my tool. I'm using just that little small loop, and I'm going to make little adjustments at a time, just like a needle on a record. See, if I move too fast in, see how I get like a swirl effect? I want concentric circles, not a swirl on the way in. Now if you notice, we're going to pretend that there's a line right here. My tool is going to move over and stop halfway. Everything on this side of the bat is moving that way, and everything is moving here. So I'm scraping the surface over here, but if I was to come here, it's going to push. So what's going to happen if I go over, it's going to gouge and it's going to spin my tool. So I want to make sure that my tool might cross over, but the point of contact will never go over that halfway mark. Now my elbows are on my legs and structured to my body, so I'm able to move easily. I'm not having my arms up, so I'm not moving around. I'm structured. Now I'm going to switch to using the full length of that loop tool. I'm going to angle that interior shape of that foot. I'm going to angle it just a little bit on the outside too, so it gets a little bit more rounded. I don't want my foot to be solid flat. We want to make sure it's soft enough to sit on a wooden table. If it's solid flat, it's got a lot of surface to scratch up the table. So I'm going to switch to my soft red rib to just kind of burnish and smooth down those edges. And to get rid of those trimming lines. If you're somebody that likes to carve a design on the bottom of the foot, it's really important to make sure that your canvas, the bottom of your pot, is really smooth. And when you go to take off the coils, you're going to roll them backwards. So roll them away from your piece. And then I'm just going to take my finishing rib and just lightly soften up those edges where it might have been marred a little bit from being on the bat. And there you have it. Small little plate.